Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Moving forward with tonight's class to finish Kitab al-Iman bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Chapter 10. Last week we discussed Babu it'am al-mamluki mimma ya'kulu. وَيَلْبَاسِهِ مِمَّا يَلْبَسُ وَلَا يُكَلِّفُهُ مَا لَا أَوْ مَا يَغْلِبُهُ is to feed one's slave with what one eats himself, and to clothe him with what one clothes himself, and not to burden him beyond his capacity. Last week's class, we explained the connection and the relation between the Islamic law regarding the treatment of a slave and oaths. Amen. Yameen. Why is this even in the same chapter? Why is there the mention of an oath that you make, that you break, that you keep, that you have to expiate for, and a slave? We explained that. What? That was last week. We explained the connection, al-munasaba. All right? Bayna hada wa hada. Okay, so we're not going to repeat that here tonight. Of course, we didn't want to go too much of on a rant or a tantrum with regards to the long history of slavery in the world, in and outside of this country. Some of the parallels, some of the differences. Now, the good, the bad, and the ugly of that. And very interesting, if you look at and study the history of slavery in this country, of course, people of different tastes, different views, different opinions. But if you look at the main wars between two of the main strands, one could argue and say, of Christianity, even though in actuality they aren't really Christians, Catholic versus Protestant, and the wars between the two. Verbal wars versus actual bloodshed, all right? And the people that had instigated, inshallah, the stream, is it straight? Is it straight? Abdul? No, it's crooked. Yeah. You look at the long history of this country, the Protestants versus the Catholics, right? The Pope, the Jesuits. It's a long discussion. But people arguing to defend or attack the institution of slavery. There are those who defended slavery in this country based off of science. Hence the eugenics afterwards. That's a long discussion. Birth control, abortions, right? With regards to superior and inferior races, races that are inherently inferior and must be subservient to other races based off of science. The shape and the size of the cranium, the skull proves, etc. And then there are those who validated their position of slavery in this country based off of politics. And then there are those who made the argument of slavery based off of faith and religion, saying that God mandated it, God allowed it, God commanded with it, etc. And to attempt to abolish the system of slavery will be going against God and going against his words and his teachings and the Old Testament and the New Testament, so on and so forth, right? And of course, we have anti-Semitism, prejudice and bias against Jews, which is here in this country, okay? The Protestants and the Catholics. You look at the KKK, for example. People just think that the KKK stand against black people and then that's it. But it's deeper than that. It's far, far deeper than that. From the things that the KKK and the other offshoot groups and gangs and political organizations stand against are Catholics. And Catholicism being an abomination, right? So on and so forth, etc., right? So people argue, the counter argument of that is that first and foremost, God did not mandate, did not allow the slavery of capture and kidnapping, which was the predominant stock of slaves here in this country. Those who were kidnapped, those who were captured illegally against their will. Secondly, the Old Testament nor the New Testament, neither of the two mandate slavery based off of debt and inheritance. But there were those who argued that slavery was only allowed in Christianity, biblical Christianity, two forms. Slavery of indentured servants, that a person will be manumitted after some time, after paying off what was owed, or voluntary slavery. A person could make himself an indentured slave voluntarily, or warfare, captives of war. And if you look at the similarity between those two types of slavery, and it's very interesting, and the prohibition of kidnapping and taking free people, splitting up families, and let alone the maltreatment of slaves, right? But it's a very interesting history. If you just look at the Christians that were for it and the Christians that were what? Against it. And those who validated the practice of slavery through their lens of religion and Christianity would be countered by those who said God allowed slavery, but not your type, not your kind. That's not what you're taught to do. To even have them, let alone if you have them, how to treat them, right? So it's very important whenever we have these different arguments within the Muslims, outside of the Muslims, to be firmly grounded in what you're debating and speaking about. Because oftentimes, the strongest proof that a person has, they can be refuted on the strongest point. And if you refute them on the strongest proof and evidence, then what really remains? So I'm sure you can make many parallels in your own lives with regards to your different experiences. It could be mother and son, father and son. Your father is controlling your life. Your father is, unfortunately, extremely narcissistic, toxic. And he tells you, the Quran says that you have to give me all of your money. The Quran says that you have to be a good son and obey me. Absolutely. You have no choice. You have no option. And if you don't, you're going to go to Jahannam. You may not be able to argue with all of that. The Quran does say this about the father, about the mother. But does the Quran allow and mandate your behavior, your treatment, your action? Everyone understand this? You get the point I'm trying to make. Instead of saying, oh no, that's not true, I don't have to listen to you. But as long as someone can hold and dangle that over your head, this is Islamic, this is biblical, and you just generally accept that, then in most cases they're going to guilt shame you. So God promised the people of this land, so on and so forth, biblical. All right, let's actually not run away from it, but let's actually deal with what you're claiming to be your strongest evidence to validate your claim or your right to a thing. What does the Quran actually say about this? What does the Bible, what does the Old Testament actually say about so on and so forth? You guys get the point I'm trying to make? So you have to be my slave, you have to obey me because it's in the Bible. And if you don't, it means you're going to be a bad Christian, you're going to go to hell. No problem. But there's a bit more that the Bible says. There's a bit more, right? With regards to how you even treat someone. So all of these different things are reflections with regards to the Islamic rules of the treatment of slaves. How they are and what aren't to be treated, right? And that's food for what? Food for thought, right? And many things that we suffer from in this country today are based off of these false precepts. To this very day. To this very day, all right? So never fall for that, huh? And as I said before, if you use this technique against the opponent in his strongest proof, then everything else is relatively what? This is relatively weak. It's easier if this is the best that you got. And for sure, that was the strongest proof that they had, was this is, we're trying to be godly by enslaving people and treating you like this. It's the way God wanted it to be. Right? All right. Khair inshallah. So, feeding the slave from the food that you eat, clothing the slave from the clothes that you wear. We explained that. And if you give the slave too much work, then you yourself are to help him out. Next hadith is hadith number 1078. حديث أبي هريرة عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إذا أتى أحدكم خادمه بطعامه فإن لم يجلسه معه فليناوله أكلة أو أكلتين هكذا أو لقمة أو لقمتين فإنه ولي حره وعلاجه. Hadith number 1078 is narrated by Abu Hurairah. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when your servant brings you your food or brings food to you, if you do not ask him to join you, then at least ask him to take 1 or 2 handfuls, for he has suffered from its heat and has taken pains to cook it nicely. When a servant of yours brings you your food or your drink, then the first thing you should do is? No. You shouldn't offer them anything. You should what? فَإِن لَمْ يُجْلِسْهُ. Sit down. You can't leave yet. You have to sit and eat with me. And if you can't, I have work to do. I have things to do. Then at least what? Take a piece, a bite, or a sip. Because he himself has done what? Had to deal with the heat and the smoke, the grease, the water, the mess, the cutting, the chopping, the boiling, the baking, right? He had to deal with the difficulties. He had to sit, he had to wait, he had to, flip it at the right second to make sure it was perfect for you. We've spoken on this hadith before here in the masjid, Friday Jumu'ah. It's a beautiful hadith, like all hadiths are. They're authentic. And it just goes to show us how Islam promotes consideration of people. Sympathy and empathy, being mindful of people's feelings, and being never ever too big for your britches. You're not but so big and powerful and wealthy and in charge. You're the head honcho, that you can't humble yourself and lower yourself for those that are subordinate to you. Islam is against that what? That type of behavior. I'm sitting up here above the throne, peasant, bring me my food, leave immediately. Don't dare make eye contact with me. You may now what? Withdraw. I give you permission. Okay? But only bowing. So, Islam shows us this with regards to someone who's your slave, your khadim, your servant. And this is applicable to anyone else that's serving you. And subhanAllah, you never ever know what a nice, kind word would do for someone who's having a bad day, or who's been mistreated and abused and disrespected their whole life. In a restaurant, just try it out. Someone brings you your food, say, hey, would you like some? Just try it out. With a non-Muslim, you'd be shocked, the face that they'll make. Even if they feel, oh, you're not really being sincere, or can't you see I'm working, or I don't like this type of food, but just the consideration, hey, would you like some? He'd be shocked. The smile, oh, thanks, man, I really appreciate it. You'd be shocked. You may touch somebody's heart just by being what? Thoughtful. Versus you feeling that I deserve this service, I earned this is what I'm paying you for, so on and so forth. This can apply to a household, your wife, your husband, your children. Thank you. I appreciate it. Would you like some? Have some, please. I insist. That one act of kindness could go for miles in changing someone's attitude, let alone this person has access to your food or to your drink. How wise is it for you to disrespect them? How wise is it for you to talk down and look down upon someone that's feeding you? And that's why their basic principles, where we come from, it is certain people you just never ever disrespect. One of them is someone who's bringing you your what? Your food. You never talk funny or greasy to someone serving you your food. That's just a basic rule, because all it takes is a split second for it to go down. And then they smile at you, enjoy you. All right, you drive out of the parking lot or the drive-thru knowing they know that we got them. Versus, thank you, please. 1 second, I put some extra, tater tots in a bag for you. I put some extra, I'll give you a couple extra, I gave you extra drink. Because you were kind and because you were nice, because you weren't so nasty and entitled. Right? Rush hour, early in the morning, people, hurry up, beep, 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 bring me my food. I ordered a small coffee, not a big one. But you being a nice one, in most cases, they're what? I gave you a couple extra donuts. So that's something to be mindful of, right? Is never be nasty to people that are serving you, especially your food. And that's for your benefit, let alone for the benefit of others. So therefore, sit the person down first. You can't leave. And if you don't sit them down, then at least give them what? A morsel or two. This is my food. This is grown-up food. Don't touch my food. Don't touch it. Get away. Don't even look at my plate. Go in the corner. How people talk to their children. And the resentment, it starts off what? At an early age. So the Prophet ﷺ, he has given us here in this hadith ultimate, supreme guidance on social harmony, right? On having a better society, Be considerate of others. You're sitting, you don't know how hot the water was. You don't know what it was like cutting up those onions. You don't know what it's like dealing with the hot pan. He did all of that. She did all of that. For you to enjoy it, the least you can do is what? Be generous, right? Khairan inshallah ta'ala. And as I said to you guys before, hopefully, if you implement this hadith, you'll see a difference in your lives. And it's a tremendous form of da'wah. A tremendous form of da'wah. Tremendous form of da'wah. Especially if it's a restaurant in which Muslims continue to frequent. And if all of the Muslims are practicing the sunnah, it's nothing but a matter of time before the non-Muslim is going to say, wait a second, something is weird. All Muslim customers or Middle Eastern, whatever, they're all nice. All of them have good character. All of them give me good tips. The last guy who just came in there, he looked a little bit like you. He said the same thing. You guys know each other? Is this a plan? No, I don't know him. What are you talking about? I'm from out of state. I'm from a different city. Really? And then a third Muslim guy comes and he does the same thing. What impression is that going to leave in the kuffar? They're going to realize that this is the teaching of the religion. And the next thing you know, giving them dawah is going to be what? 10 times easier. Because actions speak louder than words versus you being crude, mean, vile, nasty, you got an attitude problem, and you're representing Islam. Why should I be a Muslim? There's nasty Muslims and there's good Christians. I don't need to change my religion. May Allah help us all. Khairan inshallah. All right, let's move forward to the next hadith. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Chapter number 11. قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم مشفوها قليلا أي قليلا بالنسبة إلى من اجتمع عليه. في هذا الحديث الحث على مكارم الأخلاق والمواساة في الطعام لا سيما في حق من صنع أو حمله لأنه ولي حره ودخانه وتعلقت به نفسه وشم رائحته وهذا كله محمول على استحبابه. قال داود يعني لقمة ولقمتين أما الأكلة فبضم الهمزة وهي اللقمة كما فسره وأما المشفوف والقليل لأن الشفاء كثرت عليه حتى صار قليلا. No, he says in this hadith is the encouragement for good Islamic behavior. Makarim al-akhlaq, solid behavior. Being mindful of others, sympathetic, empathetic, helping people out, sharing and trading food, especially the one who prepares the food, because he had to work, labor, and let alone he smelt the fragrance. And in most cases, his soul was connected to it. Now, no, he states that this is recommended. It's not obligatory to be done. Mahmulun ala al-istihbab, recommended. Why is it recommended? Even though there's a fi'l amr, because it's pertaining to adab. And many of the ulama say that whenever the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam commands us to do something with regards to manners and behavior, then it is either recommended or disliked if he prohibits it, not haram or wajib. And that's a long discussion in itself. Wallahu ta'ala alam. باب ثواب العبد وأجله إذا نصح لسيده وأحسن عبادة الله. حديث ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال العبد إذا نصح سيده وأحسن عبادة ربه كان له أجره مرتين. حديث أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم للعبد المملوك الصالح أجران والذي نفسي بيده لولا الجهاد في سبيل الله والحج وبر أمي لأحببت أن أموت وأنا مملوك. حديث أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم نعم ما لأحدهم يحسن عبادة ربه وينصح لسيده. Chapter 11 says the reward of a slave who is honest and faithful to his master and worships Allah in a perfect manner. When a person is tested by being a slave, if he keeps it real with those who have rights over him, and if he keeps it real in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will receive a double reward. he'll be blessed. This chapter, heading goes to show is that whenever Allah takes something away from you or puts you in a trying or difficult, challenging situation, there's always some cash back. There's always some type of get back that you get. I lost my eyes. I became a slave. I lost my legs. My children were taken away from me. I got a divorce. I lost my money. Whatever is taken away from what you think and feel that you own is yours, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always gives you reward. If you're patient and if you accept what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for you. Now, there's two ways we can do this. We can argue and fight and bicker and go against the grain, and what's meant to be will be. Or you can accept and embrace, and what's meant to be will happen and you'll get a reward. You have to make that what? That decision. Why did Allah test me with this illness and this sickness? Why me? Why not other people? Why are the kuffar like this and like that? Why me? You can keep asking that question, or you can say, I accept it, and make the best out of the situation. And if and when you do, that is your way and means to pleasing Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, a long discussion for us to life, how we get caught up, and why and how, instead of what am I going to do with this situation that has been decreed upon me. Everyone understand this? So, the Prophet ﷺ tells us in these hadiths that we're going to read that there is a reward for giving Allah His rights and giving the one who has power over you His rights. Khayr, inshallah. First hadith is 1079. It's narrated by Ibn Umar. Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, if a slave is honest and faithful to his master and worships his Lord in a perfect manner, he will get a double reward. And this goes to show those who quote the Bible stating that slaves should be dutiful and faithful to their masters, and they aren't allowed to disobey their masters and steal so on and so forth from their masters, that isn't something which conflicts with the teachings of Islam. It does not conflict with the teachings of Islam. The problem lies in weaponizing the religion, using the religion when it's convenient for you, and you yourself are a secular person. Nothing about you is religious or faithful. You're godless. From the money that you make, how you spend it, how you eat, how you dress, how you live, you're not a spiritual religious person at all. Faith is just a part of your culture, what you say, what you're talking, that's it. But when it comes to you obeying, listening, giving God, scripture, that's something that we suffer from as Muslims. And this can be applied with regards to the slave discussion. This can be applied with regards to the biblical right of Israel over the West Bank and Greater Israel, because God promised this land to us. Where is the Torah in your daily life? Where? Where is what God said and commanded in your practice, your appearance, your system of government? Where? So why is it God biblical when it comes to, right? And of course, it happens on a daily basis with the Muslims. A husband doesn't treat his wife kindly. The Quran says, obey me, listen to me. You can't leave the house. You have to do this. You have to serve me. Sahih. But the Quran also says, and it also says all of these things that the husband is supposed to do for the what? For the wife. And the Quran says pray on time, fast. The Quran says lower your gaze. The Quran says a list of things that you what? There's no trace of them on you. Alright, so as long as we weaponize religion for our own selfish goals and aims, we know what's going to be the end result. Allahumma musta'an. Islam is a two-way street. It's not just for you, but there are rights over you as well. People deserve things from you just like you deserve things from the student and the teacher, the scholars. What is the right of the scholar? What's the right of the teacher? Sahih. But the student also has rights. Okay, so we can't just take and want and demand without giving. And of course, the Prophet ﷺ tells us that the best hand is the what? The upper hand, which is constantly what? Giving. Give more than what you take. Give more. Offer more than what you demand and request of people. And the world will be a better and safer place for everybody. For everybody. May Allah help us all. Next hadith 1080, narrated Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a pious slave gets a double reward. Abu Hurairah added, by him in whose hand my soul is, but for jihad, hajj, and my duty to serve my mother, I would have loved to die as a slave. If it wasn't for fighting, if it wasn't for making hajj, and if it wasn't for the fact that I have to serve my mother, I would prefer to be and die as a slave. Because of this, double reward. Easier life, less responsibilities, less punishments, and all right, tayyib. So in Arabic, it states, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِ بِيَدِهِ. It doesn't stay in the hadith, قال Abu Hurairah, or Zada Abu Hurairah. We explained that this is an example of interpolation. MashaAllah. Very good. Ahsantu. Which is called what in Arabic? Mudraj. 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 Interpolation. Very good. In Arabic, the hadith states, listen carefully, لِلْعَبْدِ الْمَمْلُوكِ الصَّالِحِ أَجْرَانِ. The righteous servant will receive ajran, 2 ajrs, 2 rewards, double. Double what? Double jeopardy. Now daily double. طيب. وَالَّذِي نَفْسِ بِيَدِهِ. And I swear by the one in whose soul my hand is, if it wasn't for etc., I would prefer to live and die as a slave. So the hadith is presented as what? One passage, one speaker. I.e., the Prophet is saying, the righteous servant will receive double reward, period, or comma, and no. La. Start off the hadith. The hadith states what? The righteous servant will receive what? Double reward. That's one sentence. Or a comma, either or in English. And I swear by Allah, in whose hand my soul is, I swear, wallahi, I swear to you, if it wasn't for fighting, if it wasn't for performing hajj, because the slave may not be able to go out and fight. You ain't going anywhere. Just stay here, serve me. No, you can't fight. I need you, the master may say. But I need you. Can I get my papers? I want to be free. You know, I need you. The harvest season is coming. We're about to, I need you. Maybe next year. Maybe next. Please. I beg you. Master, I want to go, me and my family. I have enough money. No, I need you. Maybe. You know I need you. We got all this tobacco it's real. This is real life. I need you. Right? You want to resign from your job. Your boss tells you what? I need you. No, not yet. I don't accept your resignation. We need you. So the slave doesn't have the freedom to just what? Go and do whatever he wants to do. Jihad, you have to travel. You have to have a horse. You have to have the camel. You have to have your armor, your breastplate, your spear, your helmet. Back in the day, it wasn't no, official army. You had to go, you had to provide all of your own gear. You had to provide your own what? Your own gear. The slave, if he doesn't have no money, he can't what? No armor on the battlefield, naked. Hajj, how long does it take to get to Hajj? How much does it cost the slave? So, the righteous servant will receive what? A double reward. And I swear by Allah, the one in whose hand my soul is, if it wasn't for the virtue of fighting and dying in the lost cause, and if it wasn't for the obligation and the virtue of making Hajj that you have to travel for, and if it wasn't for my mother, I have to serve her 24/7, I would prefer to be owned by someone and enslaved by someone. So in Arabic, that is presented as what? One text. It doesn't say anything about Abu Hurairah. Clear or not? So, did the Prophet ﷺ say all of this? Why not? How do we know? What's the proof for that? Huh? The Prophet ﷺ's mother wasn't alive. The Prophet's mother was what? Long. right? So that's implausible. What else is there? There are other things which clearly prove that the Prophet couldn't have said this.
He made Hajj once.
Maybe the Prophet only made Hajj once. Okay, it's not something that he kept doing or he did it. It was towards the end of the Hijrah, the Hajj being mandated. Abu Hurairah leading the Muslims in Hajj in the 9th year. Okay, Tayyib, not bad. What else? There's something deeper than that though. Stronger. The Prophet would never ever give away the virtue of nubuwah and risala, messengerhood, to serve the two. No matter how virtuous it may be. The Prophet would never say, I choose to be a slave and a servant instead of being. It's just impractical. Everyone understand this? All right. So many scholars, this is only one, that they have determined that this hadith is mudraj, interpolated. How did it become interpolated? How? Kif? How did Abu Hurairah add it? Abu Hurairah lied on the Prophet? How?
Just zeal.
Okay, like what? So I'm telling you what I saw. Such and such on the Van Wyck, this car hit that. And I'm not expressing my feelings or a past accident that happened to me, but it actually wasn't a part of what I'm narrating right here on the street. And you took the notes and did what? Tonight this happened, narrated clear or not? Not with a malicious intent or an evil intent, but as a what? As an accident. So mudraj, there are ways of discovering that something is interpolated. One is the text, as we've just done here tonight. And there are other times in which it's not that clear. But we look at the various reports. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu in his hadith, as an example, Mulazim, he has 20 students. 20 students that sat with him, and he all told them what? This narration. لِلْعَبْدِ الصَّالِحِ, all right, the servant that's righteous, that's pious, will receive double rewards. And he told this to 20 of his students from the Tabi'een. And this addition, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِ بِيَدِهِ, is only reported by 3 of them, or 1 of them. And the others clearly reported just what Abu Hurairah said from the Prophet, and that's the end of the hadith. He's a stronger student. There are more, etc. So mudraj is shown by comparing the chains of narration. And obviously, if there's any comparison, then that pertains to shadh, illa, muttarib, mursal, munqati', mawquf. All of the sciences from one thing we what? Learn 10,000 things. All right. Tayyib. Jazakumullah khairan. That answer will get you, that's a get out of jail free card. But you can only use it once though. In the future, all right? All right. Tayyib. Jazakumullah khairan. The last hadith states, is hadith number 1081, narrated Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, goodness and comfort are for him who worships his Lord in a perfect manner and serves his master sincerely. And that's beyond what? Clear. With regards to the chapter heading. Tayyib. All right. What is one of the problems today that we have with Islam and society, the modern world? What are one of the issues that we have when we discuss things like this?
Trying to whitewash it.
Whitewash. Tell you, slavery, this, that, fighting. People trying to whitewash Islam. What are one of the problems that we have? What's one of the reasons why it just won't fit? It won't work. Further.
They see it through the lens of American history.
They see it through the lens of American history, or they don't see it through the lens of American history. Which are the two? American history, for argument's sake, will support what? Everything that they call extremists, fundamentalists, so on and so forth. If you're talking about the history. I.e., the problem is you can't ignore, we're just talking about slavery. You can't ignore the blatant hypocrisy that some of the worst people in history, some of the most notorious slavers in history, mistreated slaves, are those that are heralded in this society. Nations and people. Rome, Greece, right? Ancient Egypt, right? And the list goes what? On and on and on. This city, this cathedral, this town, it's all based off of what? So how does it even make sense? You're saying Islam needs to, because they want to do what? Similar to what you mentioned. It's a specific word with regards to whitewashing, and that is reform. That's all. You can keep your faith, you can keep your Islam, but it needs to be what? Reformed. That's the name of the game. Yes, it is a part of our history, but we've reformed that. We've accepted that. There is a temple or a statue or a memorial, but that we've what? We've made reformations. So Islam has to be reformed. Period. And the Muslims also have to be what? Reformed. May Allah make it easy for us all. Next chapter, chapter number 12. باب من أعتق شركا له في عبد. حديث عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: من أعتق شركا له في عبد فكان له مال يبلغ ثمن العبد قوم العبد قيمة عدل فأعطى شركاءه حصصهم وعتق عليه ولا فقد عتق منه ما عتق. حديث أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال: من أعتق شقيصا من مملوكه فعليه خلاصه في ماله فإن لم يكن له مال قوم المملوك قيمة عدل ثم استسعي غير مشقوق عليه. Chapter number 12 says, whoever manumits his share of a jointly owned slave. Now, many scholars in their books of hadith, if not most of them, the books of hadith that have been arranged and organized according to the chapters in the books and the chapters, most of them, if not all of them, they have that which is called Kitab al-Itq. Kitab al-Itq. The book of manumission. Clear? The book of what? Manumission. And which is a separate book, a separate chapter just on manumission. The virtue of manumission, its excellence, tahrir al-raqaba, fakku raqaba, like the Quran states, and many verses, in Juz Amma and others, about what? Manumitting a slave. Fakku raqaba. Right? Freeing a neck. Untying the neck of someone. The times in which it's obligatory to manumit a slave. Expiations that you make through manumitting a slave. The treatment of a slave. What can and cannot be done with a slave and the one who owns, etc. Kitab al-Itq. A separate chapter on the rulings of manumission. Here in this chapter, we have Al-Ayman, the oaths, and we have several chapters that deal with the rulings of manumission of slaves, treatment of slaves, buying, selling, so on and so forth. So, in Uloomul Marjan, is there a separate book on itq, on manumission? Or are all of these chapters at the end of Ayman because they're important, but there isn't a separate book on manumission? Which of the two? Do you understand the question or not? What's the answer? Check. See what the contents say. If you already don't know. Kitab al-Ayman should be chapter 27, correct? Type 28. Al-Qasama 29. Hudud. No book of manumission. Yep. So if there's no book of manumission, that would prove and support the theory of what? What I just what? Is that one of the reasons why there's so many different chapters talking about slaves and slavery in Amen is because there's no book of manumission. And the link between slaves and Amen was there with regards to the expiation. And this is where it was placed. Now, khairan inshallah. All right, let's move forward. So back to the last chapter with regards to that interpolated speech of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. No way, may Allah have mercy upon him, he discusses a few issues pertaining to what Abu Hurairah said. He says, rahimahullah, وأما قول أبي هريرة في هذا الحديث لولا الجهاد في سبيل الله والحج وبر أمي لأحببت أن أموت وأنا مملوك ففيه أن المملوك لا جهاد عليه ولا حج لأنه غير مستطيع وأراد ببر أمه القيام بمصلحتها في النفقة والمؤن والخدمة ونحو ذلك مما لا يمكن فعله من الرقيق. So when Abu Hurairah said, and if it wasn't for fighting in Allah's cause, making Hajj, serving my mother, I would prefer to die as a slave. He says this statement of Abu Hurairah proves is that the servant or the slave or the enslaved person is not required to perform jihad. It's not obligatory upon him. And that the slave isn't required to perform Hajj. It's not obligatory what? Upon him. And that's because they don't have the istita'a. Man istata'a ilayhi sabila. They're incapable. The money, the time, the freedom, the ability to move and to travel. Is this what the Prophet ﷺ said? Or is this what Abu Hurairah said? And what is the rationale of using what the companion says and states? Tayyip, what are some differences with regards to slaves? Things that slaves aren't required to do, that free people are. Jumu'ah. What's the proof? What's the dalil? That a slave doesn't have to go to Jumu'ah. A Muslim slave. What else? A slave doesn't have to get married? Free Muslims have to get married? I'm asking. It's obligatory to get married? They don't have to make Hajj. What's the proof they don't have to make Hajj? If they're Muslims.
If you're able to do so.
That applies to a free person too. It's not exclusive to slaves.
Lack of resources, money.
A free person could be the same. What's the proof that they're excluded from these acts? From the get-go. Not circumstantially. But the address doesn't even apply to you.
They don't have their own freedom.
They don't have their own freedom. So that's the proof. That's the logical point, which may be, but is that the dalil? Because, all right, why am I asking for the dalil, for argument's sake? If a slave is Muslim, then he's automatically what?
Required to do.
Thank you. Because there's supposed to be spiritual equality from the starting point. From the what? From the starting point. Woman, man, old, those are all circumstances. But ya ayyuha alladhina amanu. Now, right or wrong? Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu. Clear or not? So if this person is a believer, then he is included in that address. Exactly. So for us to remove them, we need a what? Hey, a further proof to say this doesn't apply to you. Even though it previously... Alright, what makes an exemption? Why are they exempt from Hajj or marriage, according to you guys? He said because they can't. They don't have freedom. Clear. That's logical. That's rational. But is that the hujjah? We understand the question or not?
Oh, that man, shit.
All right, before we get into proofs and evidences, any other things that are said that slaves don't have to do? Anything else? Zakat al-fitr. Tayyib, anything else? What else have you heard or read that a slave isn't required to do? A Muslim slave, of course, we're talking about. Nothing else? What about jama'ah? Do they have to go to the masjid? Do they have to fast? Slave doesn't have to fast on Ramadan.
Yeah.
Muslim slave. They do what they do.
They do.
Anything else? طيب خير إن شاء الله. Knowing may Allah have mercy upon him, he says, قوله وبلغنا أن أبا هريرة لم يكن يحج حتى ماتت أمه لصحبتها. المراد به حج تطوعي لأنه كان قد حج حجة الإسلام في زمن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقدم بر الأم على حج التطوعي لأن برها فرض فقدم على التطوعي ومذهبنا ومذهب مالك أن للأب والأم منع الولد من حجة التطوعي دون حجة الفرض أو حجة الفرض. Then it states وبلغنا, that one of the narrators said, it reached us. We heard that Abu Hurairah never made Hajj until his mother died. After Abu Hurairah said that, we heard that Abu Hurairah never what? He never made Hajj until his mother passed away. لِصُحْبَتِهَا, because he was accompanying his mother, serving his mother, there for his mother 24/7. No way, he says what's meant by this is the recommended, supererogatory, voluntary, extra hajjs, and not the Hajj of Islam. Abu Hurairah never made Hajj until his mother died, meaning additional Hajj. Not the Hajj which is the pillar of Islam. Don't misunderstand, he says. No, Abu Hurairah never said that the mother's service takes precedence over the pillar of Islam. He says Abu Hurairah made Hajj during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. But he put the service of his mother, the respect of his mother, the obedience to his mother, the benevolence to his mother over voluntary acts of worship. And one of the most virtuous types of worship is Hajj. It's one of the best physical things to do. Now there's a fiqh point that pertains to what Abu Hurairah said and did. And that is the madhab of Imam Shafi'i and the madhab of Imam Malik, is that a mother and or father can tell their children not to make additional Hajj. They can stop them. So based off of those madhabs, before you make Hajj a second time, before you make Umrah a second time, you would have to call her up. Can I go this year? And if she happens to say what? No, you ain't going anywhere. Then you, based off of that madhab, you wouldn't what? You wouldn't be allowed. And you have to keep your butt what? Right here in New York. Because mom said what? No. You can't go. And that would be an act of birr. So he mentioned Shafi'i, Malik, their madhab stated that. Proving that other madhabs may disagree. That a Muslim can do voluntary acts of ibadah without seeking the permission of his parents, especially Mom Dukes, especially the mother. Everybody clear on this or not? So, this is a reoccurring question. Can I go overseas and seek knowledge if my parents say no? Right? You ever heard this before? Can I get married to somebody that my mother doesn't approve of? Right or wrong? Can I get remarried if my parents say you can't get remarried? Can I move? Can I do this? Can I get a job? My parents want me to be a civil engineer, but I want to be a mechanical engineer. Do I have the right to pick and choose, or do my parents have the absolute right to determine and dictate the terms of my life? Some imams, some sheikhs, some scholars, or da'is, they say, of course not. And other imams and sheikhs and da'is are going to say, of course, yes. When does the parent have the final and last say on that what you do in your life? And what's meant by obeying your mother, obeying your father, and not just obeying, but serving them. Because obedience is one thing versus you just being benevolent and serving them and being there for them. Can you move to another state while your mother is still in New York? Or do you have to stay in New York until your mother passes away, then you can move? Are there any details? My mother, she goes to work. My mother is independent. My mother doesn't want to be taken care of by me. My mother doesn't want me to be under her, she wants me to be successful and travel the world and do things like this. So that's my son. I'm proud of him. That's my son right there. I raised him. What is the effect of culture and technology, the ease of society versus understanding these texts? Obviously, we know that the human being is the same creature, but you cannot deny how certain things are easier in the world today. You don't have to go to the well to bring your mother water anymore, right or wrong? You don't have to walk to the well carrying it with the wooden buckets. You don't have to go out to the shed and milk the cow and carry the wooden buckets with the splinters for your mother to have fresh milk. Rather, your mother gets fresh organic milk, what? Delivered what?
Against the car.
Right to her door, right or wrong? Food, protection, security, right or wrong? So you being there around the house protecting your mother, the neighborhood, versus my mom got a camera, my mom got this, my mom got that, my mom got what? Mom got what? My mom's strapped. Long was time. Very interesting story I share with you guys. But all jokes aside, not being funny, this is a fiqh discussion. It's a major fiqh discussion to have, and that the people of knowledge today, they have to bring this up. Culture, technology, science, Islam, all of these elements are going to have an effect on the answer that this person is going to give you. You cannot go overseas and study in Medina because I say so. Why not? I want to learn Islam. I want to live in a prophet city. No. Didn't you read this hadith? Didn't your sheikh on YouTube? This is what he said. But does the mother live in a village where her son brings her the fresh buttermilk every day and the freshly baked bread? The mom is on the train. She's here. She's there. She doesn't need your service, but she doesn't want you to go overseas and study because she's afraid you'll become a fundamentalist, an extremist. Your beard is too long. I'm scared that if you keep your beard that long, something bad will happen to you. I'm not against the beard, but I don't want my son to be in Guantanamo Bay. I don't want my son to be harassed and, mistreated because of them accusing him of things. I don't want my son to become radicalized. Do you have to listen to your mother? Is it obligatory? Does your mother actually need you, or does she want to prevent you from doing something? That's an important discussion to have. Your father says, divorce this woman, son. She's no good for you. I love her. What do you mean? I said, divorce her, son, right now. Do you have to listen to your father? Do you have to divorce her? Is it fard? Who takes precedence? Who can you marry? Interracial marriages, perfect example. Very common theme. Do you have to listen to your parents and marry someone from your tribe, from your village, from your clan? Or can you marry someone from a different race, from a different culture? To what extent does the service and respect of the parents go in light of the modern world full of technology and ease that we live in? That's the moral of the story. Back in the day, your mother had to go and catch a cab. Now there's Uber, there's Lyft, you see where she's going, so on and so forth. Instacart, like you said. There's so many different services, things are different. So that's a long discussion I think that needs to be what? Had. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because obviously we live in a melting pot, right? We live in a time which is very, very unique and unprecedented. We have so many different races and cultures and ages and classes and castes all mixed together. And back in the day, it was never what? It wasn't like that. So it's nothing but a matter of time before I start liking your culture. It's nothing but a matter of time before you like this girl that you go to school with from a different race. And it's nothing but a matter of time before back home versus Brooklyn, Queens. I'm from New York. I'm a New Yorker. What are you talking about? I just have the blood. I look like this. But my mind, my brain is wired not back home in the village. So it's an inevitable what? It's a time bomb waiting to happen. The faster we realize this and deal with it and talk about it, will, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, minimize the collisions and lessen the impact of those collisions. The more we ignore and act like it doesn't exist, and act like one thing is dominant over the other, one has virtue, or the other has all vice, then there's going to be more collisions. And this is why we have the children, one generation, being totally disconnected from another generation. This is one of the reasons why people being stuck, mentally stuck, and Islamically stuck, and not knowing what's based off of clear proof from Quran and Sunnah versus that which is based off of the time and the culture and the location. You guys get the point I'm trying to make? Inshallah. We'll stop here. What I was going to share with you, something that was shared with me a couple of days ago. There was an event, something happened at someone's house. They called the cops. Cops came to the house and they asked the guy, are you, do you have, you know what I mean? Do you own a firearm? So the brother says, no, I don't own a firearm. I don't have a gun. So the police officer told him, he said, it's my job to report the crime. Document it, write it down, do the paperwork. It's your job to defend your family. It's your job to be ready and to be prepared. That's not my job. So the guy, he's flabbergasted, like, what? You're the cop? Yes, my job is to come after you call me. Your job is to be there for your family, to protect your family. It's an obligation for you to be prepared to defend your family and your property. That's not my job. It's food for thought. So with regards to your moms, your grandmoms, right? Don't run up on white. Moms may be what? You may be waking up, right? In a bad state. May Allah help us all. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Jazakumullahu khairan.